The sky went dark as massive ships appeared from the depths of space. A fleet unlike anything Earth had ever seen. Their silhouette blocked out the sun as they hovered above the planet, their metallic surface gleaming in the light of distant stars. The first reports came in fast, and frantic people across the world stared in disbelief as the alien ships descended and positioned themselves over major cities. The world's defenses went on high alert, but there was no time for any real action as the aliens made their move without warning. The ships opened fire, blasting buildings into ruins and reducing entire city blocks to rubble. The sounds of destruction echoed for miles as panic swept through the streets. Humanity had never faced anything like this before. Their advanced weaponry felt useless against the invaders, who moved with perfect precision. Every attack was coordinated, every movement deliberate. Humans were no match against this overwhelming force. For the first time in history, the planet stood on the brink of annihilation. Within hours, major capitals had fallen: New York, London, Paris, Tokyo, all reduced to smoking ruins. The invaders seemed to move without pause, their ships tearing through Earth's atmosphere like it was nothing. The skies were filled with the sound of the alien fleet's engines. The ground shook as their weapons tore through the landscape, and the world watched in horror as their cities crumbled to the ground. Governments scrambled to react. Leaders sent desperate calls for help, but the aliens seemed to have anticipated everything. Every military effort from Earth was met with swift retaliation. Whatever technology Earth's forces had relied on was rendered useless. The alien ships moved with unmatched speed and accuracy. No missile could touch them, no fighter jet could pierce their defenses, and any attempts to land troops were thwarted by an unknown force that seemed to paralyze Earth's soldiers with fear. Meanwhile, in a hidden underground facility, a group of scientists and military leaders worked in secret away from the chaos above. They had prepared for a day like this for years, building an artificial intelligence that could harness alien technology reverse engineered from failed attempts at communication and captured wreckage. The AI was meant to be Earth's last line of defense, a countermeasure against the unimaginable power the invaders had brought with them. But even with this new weapon, no one was sure it would be enough. The aliens were far too advanced, and the AI itself was an untested risk. There was no guarantee it would work. General Alexander Griffin stood in the command center, his face grim, as he watched the feeds of the devastation unfolding on the surface. His hand gripped the edge of the console as he thought about the decision that lay ahead. The AI had to be deployed, but it was their only hope, and there was no time left. The aliens were already making their way toward the heart of the world's remaining strongholds, and if they weren't stopped soon, Earth would fall forever. As the first of the alien transports began landing in various locations around the world, Griffin issued the order. The AI was activated, and the countdown began. The entire world held its breath as they awaited the unknown. The last hope for humanity now lay in the hands of a weapon they had never truly trusted. The moment the AI activated, the world seemed to hold its breath. The massive machines that powered the invaders' ships hummed as Earth's last hope surged to life within moments. The first strike came without warning. The alien ships began to malfunction. Their weapons misfired, their shields flickered, and their advanced systems began to glitch. The aliens had no idea what was happening at first. Their command structures scrambled as they tried to regain control, but it was already too late. The AI had seized control of their systems, and for the first time since the invasion began, the aliens were on the defensive. General Griffin watched in disbelief as the enemy's fleet fell into chaos. Ships that once seemed invulnerable now struggled against their own technology. The skies above New York lit up with bursts of alien weaponry, turning into fireworks of destruction. But now they were hitting their own ships instead of Earth's cities. A wave of hope surged through the surviving humans as the first signs of victory appeared on their screens. But it was far from over. The aliens quickly regrouped and adapted their forces, tightened their formation, and their response became more calculated. But now Earth had an edge. They knew how to fight back. The first major battle took place over what remained of Los Angeles. The city was in ruins, but the resistance fighters had set up base in the heart of the wreckage. The alien ships began their descent, intending to crush the last pockets of resistance that remained in the city, but the humans had anticipated their move. The eye had guided them to a hidden advantage. Underground bunkers were packed with Earth's last weaponized drones, the same drones that had once been part of secret research projects, now powered up with human ingenuity and the knowledge of alien technology. They were ready. Earth's drones shot out from their underground stations, tearing through the alien fleet with precision accuracy missiles, and lasers streaked through the air, targeting weak points in the enemy ships. The invaders hadn't expected to be attacked from below, and they quickly found themselves outflanked. Humans began to cheer as the first alien ships were taken down. The enemy commanders ordered a retreat, but their ships were already damaged beyond repair. Their advanced weapon systems flickered and died. Their once unbreakable defenses now had holes in them. Humans pressed the attack relentlessly. In the midst of the chaos, Griffin watched as reports flooded in from around the globe. Pockets of resistance began to form in other cities. Earth's forces were not giving up. They were not broken. They fought with the fury of survival. As they struck at the invaders from all sides, it wasn't just about military power. It was about sheer will to survive. The invaders had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. But despite the successes, Earth had won. The war was far from over. The aliens were regrouping, and their next move would be crucial. The battle for Los Angeles had been a victory, but it was just the beginning. Griffin knew the true test was yet to come, and with each passing hour, the invaders would learn more about their human adversaries, and the way they fought. They would adapt, but so would Earth. And no matter the cost, humanity would fight on to the very end. The tide had begun to turn, but humanity knew they were still far from safe. The alien forces were regrouping with a speed that was unsettling. Their ships repaired and reassembled in orbit, while their commanders scrambled to regain control over the chaos they had caused. Despite the success of Earth's counterattacks, the aliens had not yet shown their true strength. They had merely taken a blow to their pride. But they were not done yet. The next wave of invaders would be even more powerful and more relentless than the last. In the midst of the escalating war, new resistance groups began to form across the world. The citizens who had once fled the chaos now fought back with whatever they could scrounge together. Some picked up old firearms, others built makeshift bombs in underground hideouts. Earth's forces began to consolidate their victories and recruit civilians who were eager to join the fight. Each city that had been liberated from the alien grip became a symbol of hope, a rallying cry for those who still held on to the dream of saving their world. As Griffin observed the global situation from his command center, he knew that humanity's strength lay not in their technology or military might, but in their ability to adapt and overcome in the face of impossible odds. The aliens had underestimated this quality. When they first landed, they thought of Earth as a backwater world full of unorganized humans, with no capacity for unity or innovation. But as each day passed, the invaders learned just how wrong they were. Humans were a force unlike any other. They fought with a desperation born of survival, but also with a fierce pride in their home, their planet, and their future. Earth's command quickly adapted new strategies to deal with the aliens' offensive attacks. The drones and AI were upgraded to be even more effective in combat. Small strike teams were deployed to sabotage alien ships on the ground, creating chaos within their ranks. Each victory, no matter how small, sent a message to the invaders that Earth was not going down without a fight. The aliens' confidence wavered as they encountered unexpected tactics and guerrilla warfare that they had not anticipated. They had assumed that once they had control of Earth's major cities, the rest of the world would surrender, but the resistance only grew stronger with each passing day. Meanwhile, on the front lines, the soldiers and resistance fighters grew closer to each other. They shared stories of the loved ones they had lost and the hope they held on to. They did not fight just for survival. They fought for their families, their friends, and their planet. They had nothing left to lose and everything to gain. The invaders may have had superior technology, but humans had something the aliens could never understand: a deep-rooted connection to the Earth and to each other, something that no weapon could destroy. The alien invaders began to realize that they were not fighting an army, they were fighting an entire world working as one against them. What had started as an invasion quickly became a war of attrition, a battle for the very soul of the planet. And in the heart of every human soldier was the knowledge that they would never surrender no matter the odds. The aliens had thought they could conquer Earth with ease, but they were wrong. And with every fight that Earth won, the alien grip on the planet weakened more and more, and hope began to spread like wildfire through the ranks of humanity. The alien forces were reeling, but they were not yet defeated. As the resistance grew bolder, the invaders began to adapt their tactics. They had underestimated humanity's capacity for resourcefulness. But now they were starting to learn just how dangerous this planet could be, and how much the humans were willing to fight for it. Every victory Earth's forces achieved seemed to prompt an immediate retaliation. The aliens began to use more brutal methods of suppression, targeting civilian areas and large-scale infrastructure in an attempt to break the human spirit. But every brutal strike only seemed to strengthen the resolve of Earth's people. The more the aliens tried to break humanity, the more united they became. General Griffin watched the battle unfold from his command center, his mind racing with strategies. He knew they could not sustain this war for long without more decisive action. The aliens had the advantage in firepower and numbers, but Earth had something they did not have: the drive to survive, the sheer will of a people who had nowhere to go but forward. The humans had learned quickly how to use the alien technology to their advantage, but it was no longer enough. They had to take the fight directly to the heart of the invaders' power. After weeks of preparation, Griffin ordered a daring offensive to infiltrate an alien stronghold deep in enemy territory. The plan was simple yet risky. Earth's forces would launch a surprise attack targeting the central command ship, where the highest-ranking officers of the alien army were located. They would need to bypass heavy defenses and penetrate deep within the heart of the alien operation. But if they succeeded, it would cripple the enemy's ability to retaliate in any meaningful way. The humans knew the risks, but they were willing to take them because the alternative was even worse. As the strike force prepared for the mission, Griffin stood before them, his voice steady, but his eyes betraying the weight of the task ahead. No one knew if they would return, but they all knew it was necessary. They boarded their ships and set off under the cover of darkness. The air was thick with tension as they moved through the war-torn skies, evading alien detection. As they neared the stronghold, the alien defenses were formidable, but humanity had learned to be unpredictable. The resistance fighters and military personnel used their knowledge of the enemy's systems to disable key shields and communication towers. They hit hard and fast before the aliens could organize a proper defense. The battle raged as Earth's forces pushed forward. The ground shook with each explosion, the sound of weapons fire reverberating in the chaos. The alien stronghold seemed impenetrable, but the humans fought with a fury that only desperation could fuel. They took out enemy turrets and disarmed traps using the very technology the invaders had brought to Earth against them. Inch by inch, they advanced closer to the heart of the base, where the central command ship awaited. As the first wave of humans breached the stronghold's core, the alien forces scrambled to mount a counterattack, but it was too late. Earth's forces overwhelmed them, and within hours they had taken control of the central command. The alien leadership was captured, and their forces began to disband in disarray. The humans had struck at the heart of the invaders' operation, and in doing so had dealt a crippling blow to their chances of victory. But Griffin knew that this victory was only temporary. The aliens would regroup, but for now Earth had the upper hand. The victory at the alien stronghold sent shockwaves through both sides. The invaders had not expected the humans to strike so decisively, so boldly, and they were shaken. Their command structure was in disarray, and many of their high-ranking officers had been taken captive. The once unified alien forces began to fracture, their morale plummeting as they realized that Earth was not the primitive backwater world they had assumed it to be. They had underestimated the resilience and determination of humanity, and now they were paying the price. But the victory was far from final. The aliens were not finished yet. They still controlled a significant portion of Earth's orbit and held the upper hand in terms of technology. Their ships could still launch devastating attacks, and their ground forces were still formidable. The battle for Earth was far from over. General Griffin knew that the hardest part of the war was still ahead of them. The aliens were reeling, but they would regroup and adapt. If they were to have any hope of winning this fight, Earth had to keep the pressure on and strike before the invaders could recover. Back on the ground, the resistance forces were growing more organized. With each victory, they captured alien technology and used it to their advantage, setting up ambushes and counterattacks that left the invaders scrambling to respond. Humanity had learned the alien tactics and turned them against them, using their own advanced systems to outsmart them on the battlefield. But the fight was taking its toll. Resources were running thin, and the casualties were mounting. Each victory came at a heavy price, but the will to survive was stronger than ever. In the heart of the occupied zones, the people of Earth fought not just for survival, but for their homes, their families, and their future. They had lost so much, but they had also gained something priceless, a unity that transcended borders, a shared purpose that could not be broken. The resistance fighters were no longer just soldiers. They were mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters. They were the last hope of a world that refused to give up. The alien forces began to pull back from some areas, retreating to their strongholds in the skies above the planet. As they attempted to regroup and plan their next move, their retreat was not out of fear, but calculation. They knew that Earth's forces could not sustain this level of resistance for much longer, and that the time had come for them to crush the rebellion once and for all. They would unleash their full might in one final push to end the war. But what the aliens did not anticipate was the power of Earth's resolve. They underestimated the depth of humanity's fight for survival. They thought that once their technology overwhelmed the resistance, the humans would fall to their knees. But instead, Earth's command launched a bold counteroffensive, taking advantage of every scrap of alien technology they had scavenged over the course of the war. They launched targeted strikes against alien infrastructure, crippling supply lines and weakening their hold on key strategic positions. The aliens could not comprehend the fierce determination that drove the humans. They had seen armies fall before. They had crushed entire civilizations without hesitation. But here on Earth, they faced something new, something unexpected. The invaders could not break the human spirit, and as the first wave of Earth's counteroffensive hit their remaining strongholds, the invaders began to panic. They knew they were losing the war, but they refused to accept it. The humans had proven to be a far greater enemy than they had ever imagined, and their fate hung in the balance. As the alien forces began to realize the extent of their losses, panic started to spread through their ranks. They had always believed that Earth was an easy conquest, a world ripe for the taking. But now they were facing something they could not comprehend. The humans were not breaking, they were not yielding, they were fighting back with a strength that seemed to grow with every strike. The alien leadership grew desperate. They knew they had underestimated their enemy, but they also knew that they could not afford to lose Earth. If they did, their empire would suffer an irreversible blow. They had to take control again, or risk the total collapse of their invasion. But it was too late. Cracks were already forming in the invaders' unity. Dissent was rising within their ranks. The leaders who had once commanded their forces with absolute authority now found themselves questioning their orders. Soldiers who had once been loyal began to murmur of rebellion. Whispers of a faction within the alien empire that had grown disillusioned with the invasion began to circulate. The idea that Earth was not worth the cost of conquest spread like wildfire, and some began to wonder if the war was a mistake. Behind the scenes, an underground movement had been growing among the alien invaders, a faction led by high-ranking officers and defectors who had grown weary of the invasion's brutality. This faction was not interested in dominating Earth or wiping out humanity. They had come to believe that the humans were worthy of survival. They had seen the resilience and intelligence of Earth's people and had come to admire them. They knew that their empire's invasion was doomed to fail, and that the only way for both species to survive was to find a way to coexist. The alien leader Xorith, who had once been a fierce and unyielding commander, began to question his own decisions. He had seen the devastation the invasion had caused, but he had never considered the possibility that his people might be wrong. He had believed that Earth was an insignificant world, and that its people were no match for the might of his empire. But as he watched his forces crumble and saw the determination of the humans, he realized the truth. The humans were not just survivors. They were fighters. They had something his people did not, and that was the will to protect their home at all costs. Soreth summoned a group of his closest advisors for a secret meeting. They spoke in hushed tones, in a chamber deep within their flagship. The conversation was tense. As they debated what to do next, the faction within their ranks was growing stronger, and Soreth knew that if they did not act soon, the entire invasion force would collapse. They had to negotiate with Earth. They had to find a way to end this war before it was too late. Meanwhile, on Earth, General Griffin and his command staff were receiving intelligence reports that something was happening within the alien ranks. There were signs of fractures within their leadership and whispers of a possible surrender. The news was met with skepticism. At first, the humans had fought too hard and lost too much to trust the aliens now, but Griffin knew that if this was true, it could mean the end of the war. He ordered his top negotiators to prepare for a possible meeting with the alien leaders. The humans had to be ready to seize the moment, but they had to be cautious. They couldn't afford to let their guard down just yet. As the tension built and both sides prepared for what might come next, the galaxy watched in anticipation. The fate of Earth and its people now rested on the fragile hope that a negotiated peace could be reached. But neither side knew what would come of this fragile moment of uncertainty, and in the shadows both the humans and the aliens wondered if this fragile peace could hold, or if it would shatter under the weight of years of war. The meeting between Earth's command and the alien defectors was set in secret. No one trusted the sudden shift in the enemy's behavior, and every precaution was taken to ensure the safety of the human negotiators. They had no illusions about the danger involved. This could easily be a trap or a final attempt at manipulation by the invaders to gain an upper hand. But Griffin knew that they had to consider the possibility that the aliens were truly divided. The war had reached a point where both sides had lost too much to continue fighting endlessly. The question was whether the aliens had come to a point of desperation where they would seek a peaceful resolution. The negotiations were set to take place on a neutral space station, an isolated location far from the battlefront. Both sides arrived cautiously. The humans were surrounded by their best soldiers, ready to act if the meeting went south, and the aliens entered the station with a delegation of high-ranking officers, led by Soreth, the same alien leader who had once commanded the assault on Earth. The two sides were kept at a distance, and every step was monitored closely. It was clear that both sides feared betrayal, and neither was willing to show any weakness. As the meeting began, Griffin and Soreth exchanged tense greetings, both men aware of the gravity of what was at stake. Neither fully trusted the other, but both knew that there was a fragile thread of hope between them. Soreth spoke first, acknowledging the devastation the invasion had caused and admitting that his empire had failed to take Earth as they had intended. His tone was solemn as he explained that his people were on the brink of collapse, their resources depleted, their morale shattered, and their unity fractured beyond repair. He expressed regret for the losses inflicted on humanity and suggested that perhaps there was a way for both sides to end the war without further bloodshed. Griffin listened carefully, his mind working through every possible outcome of this unexpected turn of events. He had been prepared for more fighting, not for negotiations, but the words of the alien leader struck a chord with him. The reality of the situation was clear. Both sides had pushed each other to the edge of annihilation, and if this war continued, there would be nothing left to salvage for either side. The humans had already paid a heavy price, but so had the aliens. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price for their arrogance. For hours they talked back and forth, each side trying to gauge the other's true intentions. Griffin remained cautious, but he also saw the signs of a genuine offer from the alien leader. Soreth did not speak like a conqueror anymore. He spoke like a leader who had seen his people's destruction and wanted to end it all. Griffin knew that the decision was not just about the fate of Earth. It was about the survival of both species. If the war continued, neither would emerge victorious. After hours of tense discussion, a proposal was put on the table, an armistice, a ceasefire, where both sides would agree to a temporary truce long enough to negotiate a peace treaty. The details were unclear, but the offer was real. For the first time since the invasion began, the possibility of peace seemed within reach. Griffin knew it was a risky move, but in the end it might be the only way to save humanity from total annihilation. He glanced around the room at his fellow commanders, who were just as uncertain as he was about the decision. But in that moment, they all understood one thing: the war had cost them everything. And if peace could be achieved, even at the cost of their pride, it was worth considering. The decision to accept the alien proposal was not an easy one, but the cost of further war was too great to ignore. After hours of tense deliberation, Griffin stood before his command staff and delivered the decision: Earth would enter into a temporary ceasefire with the alien forces. The immediate reactions were mixed. Many of the soldiers were uneasy. Some feared it was a trap. Others believed it was simply too soon to trust the enemy. But Griffin stood firm in his decision. He reminded them of the devastation they had already endured and how much more they would lose if the war dragged on longer. Meanwhile, on the alien side, Sorith and his faction had been preparing for the same moment. Their leaders had known for some time that their empire was on the brink of collapse, but many of the remaining commanders still held out hope for victory. They had not expected the humans to be this resilient, and now they were forced to reconsider their position. Sorith's faction was small but growing, and with Griffin's decision to agree to a ceasefire, he saw the first real chance for peace, even though he knew his own people would not easily accept it. As the ceasefire took effect, the battlefronts fell silent for the first time in years. The skies that had once been filled with explosions and gunfire were now still. The air of war was replaced by a tense uncertainty and a fragile hope. Both sides retreated to their bases to regroup and consider the future, but the world had changed forever, and so had the alien leadership. Some were eager to end the war and find a way to coexist with humanity. Others were less convinced and continued to push for conquest, but for the first time it was clear that peace was a possibility. The ceasefire was not perfect. There were still skirmishes on the edges of the battlefield, minor clashes between factions who were unwilling to accept the truce, but the major powers had agreed to hold their ground and begin negotiations. Griffin knew it would take time, but it was a start. The humans had come so far already, and now they had a chance to rebuild and start anew, a chance to heal the wounds that had been left by the war. Over the following weeks, negotiations were slow but steady. Griffin and Sorith found common ground in unexpected places. Both leaders shared a vision for the future of their people, but the scars of the war still lingered, and trust had to be rebuilt from the ground up. The first steps were small but meaningful. There were exchanges of resources and technology in an effort to stabilize both civilizations and to ensure that neither side would have the upper hand in the future. As the peace talks continued, more and more of the alien defectors joined the discussions. Their voices were vital in ensuring that the peace process did not break down. It became clear that both species had much to offer each other if they could learn to live together. The humans brought creativity and innovation, while the aliens brought knowledge and experience. The potential for cooperation was immense, but it would take time to fully realize it. In the end, a war was not won through force, but through an unlikely alliance forged in the ashes of destruction. Earth and the aliens would never be the same, but perhaps in the end they could learn to coexist and build something greater than either had imagined when the first ships arrived in the skies so many years ago.